Guys, if you want to build your own Bluetooth boombox like this one and a nice waterproof case that'll stand up to the elements, stick with me. I'm going to walk you through it step by step. Also, in the description down below, I will put a full build list and a link for every part used to build this unit right here. All right, let's get to the video. You guys check this thing out. Just getting started on my next build here for one of these DIY boom boxes. This one, we're going to change things up a little bit. I'm going to put it in one of these Apache 2800 boxes. This is like a Pelican knockoff waterproof container. And we are going with a marine grade Polk Audio 6x9, single 6x9. So we're going to wire the amplifier up for mono, bridge the amp. So we should get a lot of power out of this. This thing should be loud. A couple other things we're doing in this build is we are using a rechargeable 24 volt battery pack. It's actually a pretty big battery pack. This one was expensive. Yeah. Pretty good size. I can't remember how many amp hours, but this thing should run for a long time. So that'll be convenient. We'll just put a charge port on the side. When the battery goes dead, you can just plug it in. Self-contained unit. Of course, we got our sound deadening over here. With this battery, we're going to have to run a buck converter. We'll talk about that when we get there. Here's our little amp. I don't know how many watts we'll be running with the 24 volts, but the wattage on these little amps fluctuates depending on how many watts are being put into them. So that's the reason why we're doing this 24 volt system. Trying to get the most out of this amp that I can. I want to see if it makes a difference. If not, I probably won't ever build one like this again. I'll probably just stick with the tool battery adapters. Then on this build, I'm going to actually add a USB charge port to the side so I can charge my cell phone off of it if I need to be. Of course, we'll need a switch to turn everything on, some Velcro to hold things together, and miscellaneous wiring. So I'm pretty excited about this build. Let's get started. I'm going to start with the case, and we're going to debrand the case, get all the stickers off, sterilize it, make it look clean, and then we'll start cutting out for our 6x9 and get it siliconed in place so the silicone has time to dry. Let's go. All right, so this is the Apache 2800. It's a nice size Pelican case, knockoff, waterproof, blah blah blah. So this whole build, let's not get twisted here. There's no way we're throwing this in the lake and expecting everything to survive. But if we're outside and in the rain and mud, this thing should be more than adequate to keep on trucking. So that's the idea on this build. It's not to submerge it, it's to keep us safe in case of rain. These stickers are coming off easy. I thought I was gonna have to use a heat gun. Maybe I will, I don't know. No heat gun neither. Wow, that was super simple. I'm not gonna worry about this one. That one's gonna get cut out. All right, let's take the foam out of this thing so we can see what we're working with. Don't eat that silica gel. All right, I gotta get the foam out of the lid too. Oh, it just pops out. Easy peasy. Now you can remove these lids. So 6x9 comes with this little spacer that I'm actually going to use to line up my hole that I need to cut out. I think I'm just going to eyeball this. Yeah, maybe we'll... I want everything to be straight and even. That's going to be hard to hold into place while I cut it, or while I mark it. Alright, there's something to mark that with. I think I am going to use a Sharpie. I wasn't going to. No turning back now, let's cut it. Alright, let's see how we did. Gonna go like this. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Perfect. So there's a couple things you could do on these ribs. These ridges, you could trim the ridges to get that nice and flush. You could use some weather stripping, or you could silicone it. And I think I'm gonna just silicone it. I don't. It's pretty close to flush anyway. I mean, we could go through the. Could shave these down with the oscillating tool. But I think I'm just going to silicone it. I don't think it's necessary. Yeah, I changed my mind. I like a challenge. So I'm going to cut these ribs out. Okay, I got it all sitting flush. It really wasn't that bad of a job to do that. That oscillating tool makes that a no-brainer. So yeah, I would do it if I were you. So because it's sitting nice and flush now, and any little tiny mistakes I made outside my lines there is getting covered up by this grill. So I mean, I got a couple weird things, but that's okay. So I'm just going to mark these holes for the screws, and what they give me. I'm going to use these screws that they came with because why not? I wonder if they're self-tapping. I mean, it's plastic, so maybe it'll drag right in there. Let's see here. I'm gonna have to take this back off and oh yeah, perfect. You don't, I mean, you could pre-drill these, but it's plastic, so if you drill it too big, you're gonna have problems. And your screws might not stay tight after that. So just use the screws. They're going to drill right into this plastic, and then that marks your holes. Then we'll take it back out, silicone it, and then put it back in. And then all our holes are lined up. Nice and tight. Boy, that thing's got some heft to it now. Alright, I'm going to take this back out and then silicone it. And we'll put it back in for the final time. Put a nice bead of silicone all the way around that thing. I'm just using this 100% waterproof window and door silicone. I mean, you could use pretty much any silicone, I think. This isn't rocket math. Nice. All right, that's what it's going to look like. Now we just got to install the electronics and some sound deadening and all that other stuff. So we'll get this off here and let it air or dry. What I do want to do is, this is the lid. This is the lid foam, and I want to cut this out so I can put it back in. How to locate it though? Well, it doesn't look too bad. Probably gonna glue that into place somehow, so it doesn't ever fall out of there. Good enough. Okay, let this dry. Now onto our box. So the box is gonna sit like this. Okay, we gotta make decisions on how we're gonna lay this bad boy out. So let's start with easy stuff, like let's put our switch. Let's put our switch in. I'm gonna put my switch up here. I'm gonna just drill that out. There's like a little threaded insert in there. Let's drill that out. Alright. Got that little piece out of there. Oh, it's hot. Hot! Now we're going to put our step bit back in. There's a little switch. It's just a push button switch, and it's going to turn green when it's on. You can get them in different colors. All right, that's a nice tight fit. Had to screw it in there the rest of the way. Let's put a little bit of sound deadening in here. Now, I'm not going to get carried away with sound deadening because I don't think it's super necessary in the plastic. Plus, we're going to have foam in here. But it will make a nice place to mount our amp. Or our battery, because it'll stick a little better. I did wipe this out with some alcohol. So we also need to figure out what side our ports are going to be on for the battery charger and the USB charger. It does come with a plug, so we'll throw this in the build when we're finished. It's on the charger plug. So we could put it right here. What I also need to make sure is it's not going to interfere with the speaker. Doesn't appear to. Yeah, it clears that speaker fine. So, now do we want it in the center? Do we want it over to one side? That's a big battery. My goodness, that's a big battery. Let's put it center. This is our switch, or this is our USB port. Well, that thing's big. Yeah, it's still gonna work, but man, was that, I wish that hole was tighter. All right, now we need to install the amp and the buck converter. I might need to find a good spot for this amp. So let me build the amp. For some reason, you have to assemble these amps. It doesn't make any sense to me, because I don't know. Oops. All right, so things got complicated, and I had to shut the camera off and do some thinking. So I did not record everything that I wanted to, but honestly, it would have been pretty hard for me to record this, as I'm not an expert on any of this stuff. So, but it does work, and I think I got it figured out to where it's fine. So I don't remember where we left off. I'll have to look back through the footage, but it doesn't matter either way. All this is pretty simple, straightforward stuff. You got to find a place for your buck converter. Got to find a place for your amp to mount up and out of the way. You kind of want it high in the box, and you don't want any of this sound deadening around your amp because it could mess with the Bluetooth signal. I think you guys saw me install the switch, and then over here is our charge port for the talent cell battery. So everything's mounted in there and wired. So what I did is drew a diagram on the wiring, because to film this and think it through and all that stuff is just way too much for my tiny little brain to understand. So I drew a diagram. So if you need to, this is a wiring diagram. If you need to, you can pause the screen there. If you're doing an exact build like this, you can pause the screen and see how I did this. But so let's start with the battery. The battery has an on and off switch independent of the system. So that's one downside to this talent cell. If you leave the battery on, the little LED indicators on the front of the battery will continue to stay on, and therefore drawing the power out of the battery. Now, what that draw is, I don't know. It might last days like that. It might not be that big of a deal. But the way I'm going to use this system is when it is not in use, I will just shut this battery off and then open up the box and turn the battery on. I'll show you a demonstration of it once we get it all cleaned up and ready to go. It's real simple. All right, at the battery, there's a Y connector that comes with the battery. So one of your positive and negative is going to go to your charge port, and the other positive and negative is going to go to your switch. So from the switch, the green wire is what you want to put on the positive side of your Y connector. So you'll need one of these plugs, and you're going to run the green wire to the positive side. The ground just goes to ground. All right. Go back up to the switch. There are 5 wires on the switch. This is a 12/24 volt switch. So I have everything runs through the buck connector that is in output. No, so the buck connector, buck converter, what it does is limit the amount of voltage that comes out of your battery. So with this system here, we don't want to go over 24 volts because the amp doesn't accept any more than 24 volts. And the reason why we're running this battery is to get 24 volts because the amp is at its maximum peak at 24 volts. So we included the buck converter. So you'll have to watch some videos on how to operate a buck converter. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Not much to it, but just know that it limits the amount of voltage coming out of your battery. Now, I wanted to make sure that my USB, my switch, and my amp did not have any more than 24 volts because they're all rated at 24 volts. And this battery fully charged will put out 29 volts. So we are not allowing any more voltage than 24 volts to go into any of the end components. So out of the switch, 5 wires. Yellow, you're not going to use it. Cut it off, whatever you want to do. You're not going to use it. I don't even know what it's for. Like I said, the green wire goes to the positive side of our Y connector at the battery. That is what's going to pick up the power. That's what's going to pick up the power source and send it to the buck connector via the blue wire. So the blue wire goes from the switch to the positive in. Let's put that on our little diagram here. Blue wire is going to go to the positive of the in of the buck connector. Why I keep calling it a buck connector? It's a buck converter. That's your power in. Your red wire is going to go to the positive out. And your ground wire is going to go to ground. Now, the way I have this set up, all the grounds splice into the battery, except for the amp ground. The amp ground comes directly from the buck converter, but that works because the buck converter is grounded. So all the grounds are basically connected together. Figure out how you want to do that. I made a couple Y splices and just kind of try to make it as neat as possible inside the box. This red wire is your feed for your light on your switch. This red wire comes out of the buck converter to the positive on your USB, therefore limiting 24 volts at the USB charge port. And then this power wire comes out of the buck converter into the positive of the amp, therefore limiting the voltage going into the amp at 24 volts. So that's how it basically works. That's how I got it wired in. This is what it looks like after it's all done. And then I'll put the foam over top of this to kind of hide this wiring. Now, I could clean this up a lot more, and I'm still on the fence on what I'm going to do there, if I'm going to or not. But you can clean this up as nice as you want it. But the foam's going to hide most of this, so it's not a huge deal. But let me get the foam put back in, show you what it looks like all cleaned up, and then we'll do a little test run of the sound quality. All right, guys, ignore the mess on my workbench here. It is a disaster. I've got things thrown everywhere. But there it is with the foam all inserted. I cut the foam out wrong. Not a big deal. It looks decent. But it's... I could do better. I wish I wouldn't have cut that foam out wrong. I don't know how I got my measurements off, but it is what it is. So, you know, this is a preference thing. Really, you can take this as far as you want. Put wire loom on these wires, all kinds of stuff to really clean this up and make it look fantastic. I will say the foam seems to help with the sound. Also, it helps to keep this thing more stable. When this thing's bumping, it dances all over the workbench without the foam. So it seems to be a little bit more stable. You definitely won't want this thing bouncing around and then falling off of a workbench or something while you're jamming out. Anyways, so to operate this thing, simply turn on our power source, and when you turn it on, it has a little LED indicator over here. We are at half charge at the moment. And then once you turn the Bluetooth on, hang on a second, I gotta shut my Bluetooth off my phone. Okay, in order to turn the Bluetooth on, we have to hit this power button on the front. It's going to send an audible tone through the speaker to let you know everything turned on. You can see our little power button turns up green, and our buck converter in there is telling us what our out voltage is. You press the button, tells us what our in voltage is. And then you can see the little blue light on the amplifier is blinking there, letting us know it's looking for a device to connect to. And it's Very easy, no password, anything like that. So the next thing I do is I kind of do a quick tune on these things. These amplifiers, I'll turn the volume up to about 3/4, so 80% or 80%. I turn the bass and treble both halfway. Now I've messed with this already, so the bass is 3/4 of the way up, maybe closer to 80%, and it seems to sound pretty good there. You just want to play with this until you hit the right combination with the device you're using to play it, like your cell phone or whatever, and this amplifier, so that it's loud but there's no distortion. There's bass but it's not distorted. So it takes some adjusting on this amplifier, and you have to adjust it, close the lid, listen, open the lid back up, adjust it. Because once you open the lid, you're going to lose your air volume and it's not going to sound the same. So now that we have it all buttoned up, we close the lid, and there is our unit ready to rock and roll. I'll see if I can find some soothing, royalty-free music that we can listen to. All right, guys, so I've got my TV going here. I'm on YouTube, royalty-free music. So we need to connect the Bluetooth. The speaker is in the on position. So we're going to find our Wazoo audio right there on our screen. Hit connect. Now we're connected to our Bluetooth speaker. Follow my lead, under fall to your knees, it's an order, it's not a suggestion. I'm about to teach you a lesson, I recommend you pay attention. This is my kingdom, you're stripped of all freedom, you want nothing but my possession. Head back, hands tied, mouth shut, eyes wide. Baby, I'm yours. So baby, I'm yours. Whatever you say, go. Nobody needs to know. Whatever you say, go. I'm under your control. So hit me. So for the remainder, you were about to get chained up. If ever you feel you're in danger, just say the safe word, I won't get angered. Now, I'm done being playful, I promise that I keep it tasteful. So, lay on the table, cause this is about to get painful. Open up wide, I'm going inside. You're not going nowhere until the sun rises. Alright guys, that's gonna wrap up this video today. I am pretty much done with this unit. I'm just gonna jam it for a while and continue tuning on the amp, make sure everything's set where I want it. And I will continue testing out that Talent Cell rechargeable battery. I'm still on the fence on whether I like that thing or not. My next build is going to just be a simple DeWalt battery build with all the other same components. I want to see what the difference is between the power sources. This amp does have more watts at 24 volts. It does put out more thump, supposedly. And a 20 volt battery obviously won't get to that 24 volts. So I want to see what the difference is, if you can notice it by ear and sound quality, all that stuff. Because it is a bit more expensive to use the rechargeable battery. I think the battery alone was $95. So that's kind of an expensive addition to these boxes when you could just use a power tool battery, which you probably already have. That's a $100 savings. So on to the next build, but for now I'm done. If you guys have any questions, my email's down below. We'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.